Hello friends, welcome to Akul Mac Live. I am Chandrakant. Today we will be discussing about a very important subject, and the subject is called reflections. Reflections can be inward looking as well as outward looking, and to discuss this matter I will be joined by a very senior global guru. His name is Kevin Cottam. He is joining us from Singapore, and we will discuss all aspects of how to do better reflections. And reflection is so important because it will give us new ideas. So before I start the discussion, I have to tell you that there is a QR code displayed on the screen. All you have to do is point your mobile phone camera onto this QR code and you will get connected to our channel instantly. So without further ado, let us start our discussion. I'll be back after a short break. Don't go anywhere as there is this outstanding discussion starting right now. Hello friends, welcome back, and we're very pleased to have Mr. Kevin Kotam in our studios, and Kevin is going to tell us new things how we can improve our professional life. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Chandra. It's really wonderful to be back again with you and your community and your team especially.
It has been our pleasure, Kevin. In fact, the last show went very well and a lot of people appreciated. Today, we want to ask you about reflections. And reflections are so important. Therefore, my question really is, what is the importance of reflection and why most of the leaders have stopped doing reflections inwards or outwards? What is your opinion on this?
Thanks very much, Chandra. These are two great questions. And let me start up with the second one. What I have been finding within my coaching clients and my time with my coaches is that the leaders are having very hard time to find time to reflect. They say that they're so busy. They're also managing way too much. They're also losing some of their vision. They're having to deal with a lot of the mental fatigue and also a variety of aspects of being Zoomified and a variety of different aspects that they find that they're unable to find any sort of time to reflect. And I look at them when I see that, and I see that in their face, they're very unhappy about this whole thing because they realize that reflection is extremely important. Why? It comes back to the very first question is, why is it important? Well, why is it important to reflect? The most important thing about great leaders is that they're able to take that time to ask themselves big questions. Deepak Chopra says that you need to ask these big questions. Who am I? What are my unique talents? What is it that's going on in my organization? What is the vision? How can I lead in a different way? So many very, very different aspects of what it is to be a leader. But why is it important is because it also takes you into a bigger picture. Imagine yourself, it is like an imagination in many ways, is that when you go into reflection, you go into this expansion. You're not narrow, you're starting to open up into seeing ideas and thoughts and possibilities and new ways of doing things. This is not going nomading, as I call it, is finding this expansion. And reflection is that. Why is it important? Because it gives us more power, it gives us more strength, more vision, more ideas. It refreshes us, it gives us more energy. These are important aspects, especially not if you're just a leader, but anyone in this world is taking time to reflect.
Yes, I think I'm trying to unravel this mystery while talking to you. And the second question that comes to my mind now immediately is what happens if we don't reflect? If the chief executives or the leaders stop reflecting, what happens to them?
Well, there's a variety of things that could happen to them. First of all, is they could burn out very quickly because they don't take the time to take that moment of rest and pause to look at what is the big picture. Where are we in the organization? Who am I? What is my purpose? Why am I here? All of these are important questions to look at. But what happens is that they lose energy. They will also lose a focus. They may lose their mojo. They may lose any sort of direction of being able to hold and control the team They may lose a variety of different aspects of leadership in general. So it's very important that they take the time. So I asked this question. Actually, it's very interesting to look at when I talk to my coachees, and I ask them, well, what happens if you don't reflect? And they kind of look at me sort of sheepishly a lot of the time, like, well, maybe I won't perform as well. Isn't that important? And they say, yeah, absolutely important, because I have so many people to deal with. Then you have to take the time. And then I ask them about time. And I say, well, you will never have enough time to do anything, because we're constantly have only the same amount of hours in the days and the same amount of hours in the week and the minutes. But you have to plan that. You have to make a time for it. You need to know that it's not just about time, it's about what's important to your purpose. So if you take it back to the purpose and why am I a leader, then go back to that. It's leadership reflection is what I would call the breakfast of champions. There was Wheaties, that was the big, which is a cereal. And also it was their tagline, the breakfast of champions. And I believe that in many ways that reflection truly is the breakfast of champions. If you don't do it, you're going to be very much lost. My question to you, also, Chandra, do you take time to reflect?
Well, you're putting me on the spot, and I love this. To be very frank, Kevin, seriously, I don't reflect. I don't have time to reflect. Whatever free time I have, I like to get busy in something, either on the office front or on the personal front. But I don't think I have ever done any meditation for last 10 years, or I've done any thinking about it. I just talk to learned people like yourself the whole day, but I don't have free time, very frankly.
And what do you think the benefits of it would be for you if you did?
I think if I sit down for say about 20 minutes or half an hour, it'll give me some time, some relaxation. My mind will get I mean, I'm just thinking loud with you, Kevin. Whether it is right or wrong, I don't know. But I think I will get time to really focus on something which I had never focused. And even if I have like 20 minutes in a day, it'll give me a good boost to think about something else laterally and not in the straight line.
I love the word that you use, laterally, because that really, and what I was talking about is thinking vastly, is about this expansion, is about seeing that big picture, the wide picture. Is because you start to then loosen up, because there's so much tension in our bodies and our minds of getting things done. And when you don't take the time to reflect, you have that constantly on the go, on the go, on the go. And you need that breath, that allowing that breath to just loosen it up, to see what will flood in and flow in, and then refocus again. I reflect quite often, and I don't, I do it in different ways. For example, I will do it when I walk. I will actually talk to myself, or I will just listen to the nature. I won't put earplugs in. I won't do anything in that particular realm. Or I meditate, or I take time to journal. These are all reflection moments. It's very interesting, this story is that one of my clients said to me that during one of her positions that she was sitting, taking time to reflect, and she was looking out the window. And her boss came in and said, "What are you doing? Why aren't you working?" And she said, "I am working. I'm reflecting." And so many people think that this is being lazy, that you're looking in, dreaming. But you know what? That's going nomading. Dreaming and reflection are going into the different areas of our brain and just releasing into our body, so that we're able to find some open space, find some ideas that may flood in. And as they talk in spirituality, it's about looking at the gap. It's about finding that movement of opening up the gap so that there is more information that can flow in, and different information or reconstructed information. So yeah, you might want to try it.
Well, I think it's a skill to have, because we we have learned that time is money, so we like to be busy all the time. But I think this is a skill to have, and it requires a coach. So that brings me to the next question, Kevin. How do we find an appropriate coach who will guide us through this process of finding time, and how do we reflect? Things like that, steer it in the right direction. The thought process of individual. How do we do that?
Okay. I'll get back to the how we can do that, but let's just break it down. What is the meaning of reflection? It comes from the meaning of from Latin, and it's reflectere. And so means going back. Reflectere means a bouncing off, a bending of waves. So in other words, it's bouncing off, it's coming back at you. So for example, when you look at the mirror, that's a reflection of you. And what's happening is the light waves are bouncing back to you. And this is about the reflection is through sound waves, light waves, and also through our thinking. And that is also a reflection. It's a bouncing back. So now coming back to that with a coach, in many ways, it's not necessarily about finding the coach, but maybe it is about finding the coach. But in our coaching training, in many ways, what we're doing is actually stimulating the skill of reflection. When I when I do my coaching and I use this idea of go nomading, and I use the nomadic mindset. So I tune into the nomadic mindset. And this is about flow and about bouncing back and forth ideas. And so what happens is that we may ask some sort of question, and then we pick up on the answer. It's reflecting back at us, the answer from the client. And then we may pick up some words from that client, which is now reflecting back in another question, those words back. So it's this bouncing back and forth. It's this dance, this movement back and forth. It's this fluidity of flow. And interestingly enough was that a client of mine the other day, I asked him, I said, because, we're coming to an end of our coaching package. He says, well, what is it that's about the coaching relationship that you like? And he says, I love the way we just bounce off of each other. I love the way you hear the conversation, then we bounce, and then we go back and forth in this rhythm. And I never realized that this was happening, but this is about going nomading. This is about really allowing that nomad to just flow through. I asked another client, she said to me, about this, and I said to her, what was that? And she says, I love the way you just follow me. You stand by me, you follow me, and we just move along, and wherever we go, you're there. And that is a way of reflection. All of this is reflection, because now we're reflecting back. In fact, the whole coaching conversation, I would suspect, and I would believe and suggest, is a reflection, because it's giving the client and these leaders time out of their day to spend in conversation, which opens up these ideas and thoughts. And I believe that that's exactly what is needed, and why a good reason to have a coach. And also for leaders, if they don't have the time, then schedule a coaching and have a coach. That way you'll get that time to reflect, because we'll work on whatever you want to do. And I flow back and forth, bounce back and forth. We bend the sound waves, and we just go nomading. And I think that that's an important factor when you're looking for a coach, is to be able to look for coaches that are able to flow with you. Because it is a relationship, it's a conversation, and a relationship is a reflection of yourself as well. As you know, people say that individuals, we are a reflection of nature, or a reflection of the universe, or the universe, in metaphysical terms, the universe lives within us. It is this truth, because it is all one. The energy is all one. Individuals are not separate from nature at all. We are all interconnected in some sort of quantum physics. And I think that the reflection then is the automatic way of moving us through this nomading, so that we're able to expand, then evolve with some ideas. I don't know. It was a long answer to your question, but hopefully it got there.
Well, I think after hearing your answer, I personally believe that uh, it's easier said than done. And we definitely need a coach because we'll not be aligned to the goal that we have set up for reflections. So, personally, I believe that if I have to do it, listening to the theory, I will not be able to do it. So, I need a coach definitely to guide me and make sure that I have some time out from my busy schedule and I do reflections. I think that is what I have understood so far.
Okay. Well, I'm happy if that's what you understood. It's good.
Well, I think it is such an important thing. Sometimes what you're saying is making a lot of sense. We need time for ourselves, and which we don't do. Most of us, I think 90% of the people are busy in the rat race, um, trying to do everything, trying to do, not leaving anything for tomorrow. They want to finish everything today. So I think this is a very vast subject. We cannot finish in few minutes, but I think the point that we have driven today, and especially you, Kevin, you being present on our show today, is that you need to do reflections and you need a coach who can take you there, who can incubate you, create an inception in your mind so that you get new ideas, fresh ideas, rather than sticking to the rat race. So I think that is the learning overall.
Yeah, let me just add one thing, and then I guess we'll finish up on that. Is that during this period of COVID, and now there is a mounting pressure on a variety of people that are having a lot of mental, challenges, and mental well-being is the real big issue now. I'd like to say holistic well-being, but a lot of it is not being able to take time to reflect. Is being by yourself, is going internally and bouncing those waves back, and sound waves and thought waves back in and out, so that there's this circular function of our lives, a circularity, just like circular economy it's a circular. And I think that COVID has showed us that we really need to be able to take that time. And even if it's privately in homes where they're just remotely working, is to take a corner, to be able to just sort of take some time away from the computer, to be able to just walk up and down in the house, just standing up and down. And that's a moment. And it doesn't take long to actually take a moment of reflection. It is just going inside. It's a practice like most things. It's a skill. Yes, I guess it's a skill as well. But you either want to do it or you don't want to do it, like anything, right? But it's about looking at what is the benefit for my life, for my vision, for my purpose, my direction, and so many different things. And I think that no matter what level you are, from the leaders all the way down to the bottom to the cleaners, everybody is a reflection.
Our viewers will also get a lot of benefit after hearing this conversation. It has been a pleasure talking to you, Kevin, and we will catch up next time on something more interesting.
Thank you so much, Chandra. That was great today. I really enjoyed it. Ciao.
Good morning. This is Chandra from Akul Mac Technologies. And today in our show, which is called Top Brass Likeable Leaders, I'm graciously inviting two global leaders in our show. One is Mr. Naval Gant, who's a global guru, and he teaches a lot of chief executive around the world. With 45 years of corporate experience, he is now the MD of MindFit Limited. See, so he will talk more about what MindFit is, and you can see the attitude which is written behind him. We will cover that during the discussion. One more personality we have today in our show, that is Mr. Satya Madala, who's the MD of Single Point Solution. Single Point Solution is
a very light organization, a rather startup, which is making a buzz in the market, and they operate in the area of EV charge solution. So with this small introduction, I welcome both of you on the show, which is called Top Brass Likeable Leaders. Neville, today's discussion is about how to make a winning pitch, how to get more customers, how to improve results. What do you think should be done for a chief executive or by a company to improve our pitch so that we have more clients and we improve our results?
Well, thanks, CK, and good morning, and really nice to meet you, Satya. The simple answer is stop pitching. And I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, but if you talk to the best salespeople in the world, they do anything but sell. They have a chat, they have a discussion, they find out what the problems are that potentially people can fix. So you literally stop pitching, because whatever you're pitching, it comes over as you're selling. And nobody likes to be sold to, really. But on the other hand, we don't mind having a conversation, do we? Just like we're having a conversation here. You know, we've got thousands of people watching, and over time, even more people are going to be watching. So if we're having a conversation that they can feel part of, then you're not selling. I hope that sort of makes sense. It's very against the standard norm, but like anything else in the world of sales, we'll talk sales now. People buy from people. The problem with that phrase is that a salesperson has got hold of it because it's not long enough. So if you think of the phrase that we exist, people buy from people. The real phrase is people buy from people they know and they trust. And immediately you can't see the word trust because it's gone out of the screen. So what we need to do is get people to trust us. And you, Satya, are a diamond as far as I'm concerned, because you've got a real 21st century product. Let's call it a product. It's probably more of a service, but we'll get to that in a minute. And it's solving a real problem that everybody's got today. So let me just ask you a couple of questions, okay?
Yep.
So what is the problem that you're solving in the world today?
See, we are more concentrated on client pain points. Like I can say, actually, in an industry, when I started my career with some sort of BPO works. Then later we transform it into technology. Then we transform into mobile technology. Then we transform into IoT. Then we transform into IoT automobile, which is into right now emerging solutions in the automobile sector, which is EV solutions. Right now, when I'm addressing your question, actually we are looking at just when I go to a client, so I'll try to find out what exactly they are doing right now, and what can be inserted by what we can replace with the technology. So we find out that, and we are working purely towards to that, and we are trying to come up with a solution on hardware as well as in a software. So nowadays, actually, when I go to a client, say for example, if they wanted to track something, like we will try to find out what exactly they wanted to track, whether it is a human, whether it is a anything, or any item or any equipment. So we try to work towards to that. See, like sometimes when I sometimes I work with some clients wherein actually they wanted to find out what sort of equipment and what is the service equipment requires, and how many hours the equipment is worked, and how many hours actually this man is working with that equipment, and what is the production and combination of this equipment and man. So these sort of solutions actually, we provided some predictive analysis, and we provided some analysis analytics which will be useful for our management. So we so far we worked towards to that in a IoT sector. Then we migrated to EV solutions, which is electrical vehicle solutions, which is pretty much going in the world, pretty much extensively using in the world, where actually we are into A to Z EV solutions. So A to Z EV solutions means from hardware to till software, we created an ecosystem wherein if anybody wants to create an EV infra, then immediately they can connect to our ecosystem. So automatically the machines will talk to the cloud. So wherein actually people can users can utilize the services directly by using their mobile phones. So this is what we are right now. It's a very brief. What we are doing is we are into IoT. So we are into IoT automobile sector. So we can apply our IoT solutions to any of the any of the solutions, any of the industry, any sector. We can apply our IoT solutions. So this is
Okay.
what we are doing right now.
Okay, you mentioned some real technical words there that a lot of people might say, well, EV, IoT, and you mentioned the word solution all the time.
Yep.
So let's
Yep.
let's peel that one down. Okay, planet. I want to buy an electrical car, and I want to know that I'm going to have the best solution and literally take away my problem. So what could you actually provide for me?
See, now actually we are work with some of the OEMs, and we work with some of the infra companies, and we work with we are going to work with users also. Now, say for example, anybody wants to buy a EV car, electrical vehicle car, so electrical vehicle. So what we are doing is we are providing a domestic charges wherein actually the user, the electrical car owner can charge his car by using our charger with any of the plug. Like that plug can be a 3-pin plug, which is a three-phase 3-pin plug, as well as actually it can be a 250 watts plug, or it can be a 160. But our charger will charge the car with a domestic charger, which is provided to OEMs. Recently we have given one domestic charger to one of the OEM. So that will do this sort of work. And another thing is now, so once the EV car is charged fully, then it go for from 200 miles to up to 300 miles. So now actually it requires some rapid chargers. It requires some rapid chargers to charge the car within a 20 minutes time. So where we come into the picture, and we created some sort of commercial chargers on the road. So wherein actually the EV vehicle owner can go to the charger and take the mobile application and put the gun into the car and take the mobile application, and by paying some sort of commercials, then they can start their charge. They can charge their car. They can charge their vehicle. It can be two-wheeler or three-wheeler or four-wheeler. So that sort of solutions we provided so far, and which is on into the cloud, and with our ecosystem, it is possible even to reserve the slot also, to reserve the slot of that EV charger in the commercial space.
Which is an iPhone. I've got a particular adapter for that iPhone.
Yes.
Every time I change my car, I have to buy a slightly different adapter to be able to charge my phone. It charges at the same rate. It doesn't charge at the same time. And if my children have got a Samsung or any other Android, it can't use the same charger.
Yeah.
So I've got to continually go and buy lots and lots of different charger. But what you've
Yes.
just said to me is not only is it just one charger
Yep.
with a uniform arena, but actually I can choose the speed of how quickly I want to charge it.
Yep.
Which again, to the consumer, is absolutely brilliant, because one of the problems we know of electric vehicles today is that they've actually got quite a limited journey time.
Yep.
I mean, we hear of up to 300 miles. I actually watched a car program the other day, and Audi have made a vehicle that actually has only got 12 miles because they've made it for a very specific use. And the other thing we do know is that I'm old enough to remember the first mobile phones, where
Mm,
the actual phone was about this size, and then the
yes.
batteries filled up the trunk. so, so I am old enough to remember those sort of things. But this is the key. We're in this 21st century arena. We don't need to be down that route.
Yes.
And I just think of what you're doing is absolutely fantastic, and we need to get that message out there. But equally, we need to get the message about you. Who is Satya? You know, you've come on a journey, but now you're in a very particular market space. If I may say, you're probably a market leader. You know, and having said that, I mean, it's a big global world here, but you are probably a market leader, as I would call it, and therefore you're an influencer. So let's just ask you a couple of questions about what motivates you. Why have you gone down this particular arena?
See, like when I see in the market, actually, I'm a pure techie guy. Actually, well, I started my career in 1998. So I started my career with I started my career as a Java programmer. So I worked in Singapore for 6 years, and I worked on so many technologies, and I worked on so many almost all operating systems, wherein I found some gaps wherein actually wherein I can come and create some products for the market, wherein actually that's what I found. Then later, when I came back to India, I saw some gaps where in the market there is no much services coming to come and serve to these manufacturing industries and users. So I took that advantage, and slowly I started my company and migrated to many technologies, and finally landed and worked in mobile technologies, and later we migrated something like this. Then later part, actually, where I found a lot gap, actually people are concentrating on normal what do you say, like normal solutions, like normal day-to-day activities, but no much competition in automobile sector. Not a competition, people are not actually much going through that automobile sector, wherein actually I took that advantage, and I came up with a product for the automobile, for a car, wherein actually once you insert my IoT device in the car, it tells you what's the problem in your car. So, and at the same time, the car will let you know, actually the car always connects with your mobile phone, and say for example, if there is any service need, your mobile will alert you. Say for example, if there is any oil change required, your mobile will alert you. So that sort of IoT technology we developed in our company, and we are taking it to the market, and actually some of the companies are using our technology. And the later part, actually, when I see in automobile sector, what is the updated one, what is the updations we can do. So wherein actually when I see that updations, so EV sector, wherein actually people are talking about the EV vehicles, but they are not ready to buy because there is no infra. So when there is no infra, why don't we look into that infra? So when it comes to first infra means charging station. So why don't we come into that space, and why don't we build our own chargers, and why don't we build an ecosystem to connect all the infra companies to that ecosystem, and why don't we provide a solution to the user to charge their cars? So this motivated me to develop a particular ecosystem and to develop a particular chargers. So and to work with the OEMs also. We are actually much we are providing some sort of ecosystems, and we are providing some sort of hardware, and we are providing some sort of software solutions for the users. So this is what we motivated ourselves on the automobile sector.
I get it. I mean, and I can see when people say that, or you say you're a very technical person. It comes over loud and clear. You
Yeah.
are that in depth, Java type person. I can script it. I can see the problem out there. I can fix it. So you are if you like, a Mr. Fix It arena. But you in many respects, what comes over you, you're a bit of an evangelist as well, because someone has to start to push the envelope.
Yep.
And what I'm getting from you is you are that classic entrepreneur. I'm not going to wait for anyone else to do it. I can do it, and I'm going to go and do it. And the interesting thing is, if there's a market for it, then we'll make it work.
Yes.
And that is absolutely key. So anyone listening to hear what you do as a person and what drives you on is now understanding why you're doing it. You're seeing an opportunity. But the interesting thing is that opportunity is a problem for lots of people, and they'll shy away from it.
Yep.
But we need innovation people like you. We need technical people like you, but equally we need other people that can convey our message elsewhere.
Yes. Yep.
And part of what we're doing today is trying to convey that message. So I talk a lot about being in collaboration with other people. I mean, CK was very generous at the beginning, so I had 45 years of international experience. That would probably make me nearer 70 than 60. But my background has been oil and gas. Now, it's the antithesis of what you're talking about. You're talking about clean energy, and I'm talking about very dirty energy. Okay, but the point is, we needed oil and gas to be where we are today. And one of the important parts about oil and gas that not many people understand is that they understand that it's very expensive, because that's why we pay the ridiculous prices at the pump for our heating oil, heat our houses, etc. But what they don't understand is what makes the industry tick, what makes the industry be as economical. I use the word not lightly, very strongly. What makes it cheap to run? And a lot of people will say, Neville, what are you talking about? Oil's very expensive. The point is, it would be a lot more expensive if we didn't work smartly. So if we didn't work collaboratively. And one thing that I know you're doing, so we're going to talk a little bit about that now, is collaborating with other people. And I know how difficult that is, because to collaborate means you need to look for a win-win. Yes. And not many people, I look at a win-win on a scale of 10. So you start with 10 and I start with 10, and we go in together, we have a discussion. And after a while, I've only got 2 ticks. But you might have 5 ticks. To me, that's a win-win, because at least I've got 2.
Yes.
But other people say, no, you've got 5, I want 5. If you've got 5, I want 5. Now, that isn't a collaboration. That's
Yeah.
that's competition.
Yes. True. 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 Pretty true.
And coming from, you know, our respective backgrounds,
Mhm.
we always want to win, don't we? You're an entrepreneur, you want to win, don't you? You don't like losing. No, you want to win every time. I mean, we all want to win every time. But the key
Yes.
thing is we need to be in that collaborative arena where a win-win might be you score 5, I score 2. That's a win because I've got 2. Equally, if you score 2 and I score 5, that's a win as well.
True.
Yeah. So just tell me a little snippet about a collaboration that you're doing currently. And I believe it's in the scooter world, isn't it? In the mini bikes or whatever you call it.
Uh, can you elaborate a little more again?
Well, when you're collaborating with other B2B, B2C type businesses,
yes.
and you know, rather than I don't want to give away, you know, the crown jewels of the organisation or any confidential conversation you've got going, but can you
Yes.
give a very simple example of a collaboration that started and it's working and it's succeeding, and you're both winning?
Got it. Now you see, like earlier when I started my conversation with you. So earlier I told you I'm providing a hardware also. See, when it comes to hardware, actually, a lot of work is involved in this. So the thing is, when I feel actually to start, manufacturing my chargers. I wanted to start manufacture some of my own chargers also with my own brand. So and wanted to white label the charger. So according to a client requirement, that's what I thought to do. But when I see in the market, as you said, actually, instead of reinventing the all wheel, actually, I collaborated. I collaborated with, some Korean companies and some Indian companies and some Chinese companies, uh, and make it happen for my client. It's something like where I'm working as a B2B and I'm working as a B2C also. So I'm working for a customers to get the technology from a different places according to their budget. Say they say, okay, I have a low budget, we have a solution, and we have a, if they have a high budget, we have a solution. And we worked in a collaborative manner with the other, vendors, we can say, or companies, we can say, or the people who are there in a complete, competitiveness in the market. Okay, so we collaborated with them. So we never feel that okay, this guy is a competitor to us. Actually, we are into software solution. The software can integrate with any sort of hardware when we say, okay, so we never feel that okay, this guy is a competitor to us, and we never look at the person, he's a competitor guy. As you said, actually, win a, if there is an opportunity of getting 10 things, so you take two things and I'll take according to our availability. So you take 10 and I'll take 2, or you just share it among us, and let us share it to somebody. So in this fashion, actually we work with many companies collaborative fashion, and we invited people to come and join with us. Actually right now we are also working towards to come up with EV vehicles also, which is in a three-wheel sector, and which is in a two-wheeler sector. So we collaborated with a few companies in India itself to come up with three-wheelers and two-wheelers. So when it comes to three-wheelers, actually we are introducing these three-wheelers on our ecosystem to rural areas, wherein actually we are providing some sort of e-autos for our rural areas. And we are providing, we are collaborated with another company and providing two-wheeler scooties, e-scooties for state tourism development to reduce some pollution in tourism places. So So when it comes to collaboration, actually, it is a good idea to collaborate with somebody who has a good knowledge or good, ecosystems with them. So we are pretty much interested to do that, and we are doing that. And we are also ready to, if anybody, providing some sort of technology, we are ready to collaborate with them. And if anybody wants to collaborate with us, we are open to do that also. We are open to work with them, and we are open to accept their technologies. So any sort of JV, joint ventures, any sort of collaborations, we are ready. We are ready. So only thing, just what we wanted to provide, our single point solution aim is just work with anybody and provide a quality solutions to customers and users, and customers and business people. So like this, we are already doing that, and in future also we are pretty much open to do that. So this is what my idea, my opinion on a collaboration.
I like
You're
to add
absolutely.
a few points here, Neville.
Yep. Go ahead.
See, the electric vehicle is a very vast subject. It's a open opportunity for everyone whoever wants to enter this area, because the electric vehicles are slated to replace the petroleum based or gas based vehicles, uh, especially the vehicles which are running on the road. So I'm not talking about the heavy machinery, but I think the individual vehicles which are running on the road can be easily replaced by electric vehicle. Why? Because electric vehicle and the petrol vehicles behave in the same manner. If you fill the tank in your petrol vehicle, it will last for another 300 miles. Same is the case with electric vehicle. One charge will take you to 300 miles. After that, you have to either refill or you have to recharge. So the effect is the same. Second point is the electric vehicle innovation has reached the peak because it has nothing. It has a body, it has an electric motor, and whatever research required to run an electric vehicle and charge quickly is in the area of battery, not in the vehicle. So I think there is an open field with regard to the charge solution, and that is why Single Point, as a company, is rolling out the, or rather focusing on the charge solutions. Because if there is no charge, there are no vehicles. So I think that is something that I wanted to bring from my side, that the innovation in electric vehicle is not actually in the electric vehicle, is in the charge solution.
So
Yeah.
basically, I wanted to add a word. Actually, it is a EV infra. We call it as a infra. Actually, when there is a infra, then the vehicles will run on the road. So we call it as a infra. So single point solution is almost concentrating more on infra, creating a infra for a EV vehicles. That's what single point solution is trying to work with the states and even central government also to central government is taking a big initiations towards this EV infra by 2022. Actually, they wanted to show a good quality infra for a EV vehicles, so that people actually, the users are, public can go and buy the EV vehicles in a two-wheeler or three-wheeler or four-wheelers. So that's what we are as a single point solution. We are creating some ecosystem around to this EV space.
And it's important, and it's good you jumped in there, CK, because let's get back to where we started here. We need to be pitch perfect. When we're promoting our organizations, we need to be pitch perfect. So in many respects, it's how, and I don't like the word pitch, as you know, because we should stop pitching, but we need to be listening to what the audience was. And just as we wrap up here, but Satya, you said it right in early on in your story, you listened to what the problems were of your client.
Yes. Yes.
If we can focus on those problems,
Yes.
and we can be collaborative in the fact that you may not have the solution,
Yes.
but you have a component of those solutions,
Yes.
but you know other people that can help fulfill the solution
Yes.
through a collaborative way, not a competitive, but a collaborative way, then we all win.
Yes.
And I think what you've demonstrated today, so thank you in advance, is that not only do you say you're open for collaboration, but
Yes.
I truly believe you. In this short conversation, I truly believe you. And that is part of what we're trying to do here. Get
Okay.
people to understand who you are, why you do what you do,
Mm-hmm.
trust you, get to know you, and then guess what? They'll come back and ask you for your opinion on things you've never even thought of, because you become that, trusted partner.
Yes.
In a world of confusion and a world of competition, believe you me, that is very rare. So thank you for your contribution today. I wish you all the success in the world. I know we'll keep in touch going forward. This is not the end of our discussion, I'm sure. And thanks, CK, for setting this up as part of our roundtable approach. And just a big thank you to the two of you for those smiley faces, because without smiley faces, nothing is going to happen.
Yes.
Thank you, Neville, and thank you, Satya. Really appreciate you coming to the Top Brass Roundtable. And we have come to the end of this session today, but we will definitely find another opportunity very soon in future, invite you both to discuss on a new technical subject. And also, as you said, Neville, try to make a pitch by listening.
Thank you very much, CK. And nice meeting you, Navel. So see you again.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Hello friends, this is Akul Mac Live and I am Chandrakant. Recently, G7 concluded their summit in London, and one of the major agenda on the table was climate change. Climate change has been such a chronic issue. The entire population of the world, 8 billion of us, are affected by the climate change, and not to talk about the billions of animals and other wildlife which are also affected by the climate change. What we can do to control situation around us as an enterprise and as an SME, as individual citizen of the world. To discuss this matter, we have a very interesting personality joining us in the studios. So friends, stick around to this very interesting discussion. I will catch you in a minute. Welcome back, friends. And as you know that the climate has become very important, and to discuss about what policies the corporates and enterprises must have in order to control climate in their own ecosystem, we have a very interesting personality. His name is Mike Bradley. He's joining us from UK. So without further ado, let me welcome Mike to our show.
Good afternoon, Chandra. How are you?
I'm good, Mike, and I always envy your background and the beaches and the environment friendly pictures that you have in your background. It's really nice.
It is a very pleasant area we've got here. I recommend when we have our tourism trades opening up again, this is the Goa of England.
Look forward, Mike. So I think the topic of our discussion is how do we handle the environment concerns, especially when it comes to enterprises and corporates. So we'd like to know from you, what are the things that enterprises must do in order to control the environment around their own ecosystem?
Yeah, well, I think this is very interesting. I was on a session yesterday morning where there was a professor of a university who had come up with a very complex model, as all professors do, because that's what they get paid on. They came up with an interesting, comprehensive, but very complicated model as to how companies can become or get towards net zero. And that got me thinking that actually, we must, with this subject, we have to start by not trying to boil the ocean. And it doesn't matter what organization you are or what you are as an individual. What you can't do is try and solve the global crisis yourself. The only thing you have control over is what your organization or your household can actually achieve. So if you are a householder and you leave all the lights on in your house, you're not helping the environment. So the first thing you could do in a household is you could walk through and have a best practice, which is when I leave the room, I'll switch the light off, for example. So within the corporate space, I think I think there's two aspects to this. But within the corporate space, what we have to do is the 80-20 rule. Okay, you can either try and drive for 100% net zero and spend the next 30 years trying to achieve it, or you could take the 80-20 rule, which says, let's identify the 3 things we could change that would have the most positive impact on our environmental footprint. And I think if all organizations looked at that, that is far more impressive than having a 100-page policy around carbon change. It's far more effective because actually, if you focus on those 3 items, which maybe are, let's say, 80-20 rule, 80% of your carbon footprint is generated by these 3 items, you'll have a major positive impact on your carbon footprint. So I think it's find those 3 things within your organization that can actually make a difference. So it doesn't matter what size you are. Maybe like say, if it's an SME and they got a business, it's switching the lights off if that's a big thing. It's turning the power off when something's not in use. Recycling the plastic bottles properly. If it's a larger organization, maybe it's more efficient way of having your staff working. So, for example, if you are a white-collar based business in the tech sector, do you honestly need to bring your staff into the office every day to do their job? And if the answer to that question is no, honestly, then maybe a remote working policy is the biggest single change you can make that would reduce your company footprint on the planet.
I think
those are my initial teaser thoughts for you, Chandra. What do you think?
Well, I think, Mike, these are very profound words that you've said. And I think every guru like yourself is saying that almost 50 to 60% of the workforce will actually get into contractual kind of workforce, and they will work from home or work from cafeteria or work from anywhere, but not from the office. And those kind of work will get outsourced. And I think you're talking about how do we control the environment around us. So I will tell you that the government of India has already banned few things for all individuals, and that may be very relevant to bring it here for information to be passed to global viewers here. Number one is that across India, it is not allowed, India does not allow citizens to build bore wells and draw water out from earth. So there are very few places where you can draw water out of earth. Otherwise, it is always a piped water. India is a large country with a lot of rain, but in spite of that, the water table has receded, and the government has taken a very stiff measure not to allow any bore wells across India. There may be few exceptions here and there, but by and large, almost 99% bore well does not work here, or does we don't depend on bore well. Number two is the electricity. So what is happening here is that 25% of the electricity is coming from the electric farms which are being installed right now, and this is a recent development where the goal of the government is not to depend on hydro or thermal and gradually transition to solar. Why solar? Because there is so much sun here and it is all going waste, and a lot of open land where nobody lives. So those are the places where huge solar farms are being built, and consequently new businesses have also emerged. Tesla of Elon Musk has already shifted their giga factory to India, where they are going to do not only build the batteries for vehicles, but also do R&D, so that the range of the vehicles can be increased. So a lot of R&D is being done in India, where the extender of the electric life in battery can be implemented globally. And number 3 point I like to make here is the goal for India to become all electric vehicle country by 2030 is the goal that has been set. So already there are many car manufacturers in India, because personal cars are one of the biggest contributor of pollution into the environment. So because of this, I already see a lot of two-wheelers going around with no sound, no noise pollution at all. Quietly they'll be going around, and I know at least 300 to 400 car manufacturers are already there and building their products, selling it online, like any other merchandise. And I think the goal is that gradually all the large SUVs and all existing cars will be transitioned with the same body and chassis into electric cars. So I think that is a very aggressive goal that India has set up. These 3 things I wanted to bring in order to bring the environment, since we're talking about environment, these are the 3
conversation. It's interesting. You see, one of the other, and you already mentioned, Tesla is adopting this approach, but I think, again, large multinationals need to examine the top 3. It's fine for Tesla to say they're going to produce this factory, but what is their carbon footprint in terms of bringing people into their office every day? So there's 2 aspects to this. There's how you run your business and the business you do. There's 2 aspects to it. Also, there's massive opportunities coming out of the change, because where there's change, there's opportunities for new entrants, as you say, on the car position. I would suggest that also from the water perspective, I'm sure that there's now a big demand for different ways to generate water across the subcontinent. So that again gives, with the right support, that gives SMEs opportunities. The same with utilizing solar power. If you're going to use solar power, you need teams of local people who can support local businesses to help them adopt these things. So there is actually lots of opportunity for SMEs in that space. So again, there's 2 aspects. There is one, how you actually use the solar and the power yourself and the energy yourself, and there's also and the environment, and there's also how you can help drive that change. But I think there's another aspect to this, which is it's fine to ban something, but the more effective way, and as I see it, in both the personal and the corporate space, the best way to incentivize people is through the tax system. Because whether it be not many governments at the moment can give discounts on tax. So it's probably better to say that governments should consider charging a premium to companies that don't adopt green policies. They don't adopt their top three. Maybe the largest multinationals or the quoted companies should have to identify these top three. And if they don't identify those top three items that they're going to change, that there's actually going to be a premium of corporation tax for the consumer themselves. Maybe this is around, there's a fair use policy on the amount of electricity you use. And if you've got X number of rooms and X number of people, that translates into a certain amount of energy across the board. And if you use more than that, maybe there's a premium charge. That way, I think people would think, oh, hold on a minute, maybe I should switch this light off when I go out the room. Maybe I should stop doing that. So I think there's the fiscal aspect, there's the personal responsibility aspect, and thirdly, there's the business opportunity aspect.
Well, Mike, there is one more thing I forgot to inform you is about the solar cells. And the solar cells are quite expensive because they're made of rare earth elements, and most of it is coming from China world over. They are the masters of rare earth elements. So what has happened here is that it's heavily subsidized by Indian government. So if you have a plan, if you are an Indian citizen, and if you have a plan to completely rely on solar power, then it is 80% subsidized. You actually end up spending 2 million rupees to put a solar cell on the roof of your house, but it is 80% subsidized. So government is pushing a lot of citizens to go on the solar way and not depend on the grid.
And maybe there's another opportunity there then to actually find a technology which means that India can provide solar cells itself.
I think that is the opportunity because the solar cells are quite expensive, and because they are made of rare earth elements, so maybe there is a new kind of solar cell that is required, which is low in cost, low in distribution for the masses. So
freely available, cheaper raw materials, easier to produce, more readily available, more consumer affordable. There's an opportunity. So maybe this is where Mr. Musk can employ some of his R&D money, is to look for cheaper ways, more efficient ways to produce batteries, to produce solar cells, etc. Of course, you have the benefit on solar compared to us. Well, we have to look more towards wind power and possibly hydro. I don't know, but wind power for sure. And these technologies need to be more efficient as well. We need to be driving efficiency, as you say, on the battery side. Battery life is vitally important. Also, that is a great goal of moving to electricity by 2030. But there's got to be two things, in my view. One is there's got to be enough electricity. And we know that most national grids are already struggling to supply the electricity that's currently used. So somehow we've got to generate more in more efficient ways, faster and easier. Secondly, there's the utilization factor. Now, India is a lot larger country than the UK. But I know if I go from the south coast of the UK and I go up to the northeast of the UK in a purely electric car, it won't get there in the 5 hours it takes me now, because it's going to run out of juice. So it's not actually practical, And I would suggest that in India it's even less practical because you've got vast distances between different cities and places. Obviously, there's aircraft, that maybe it'd be cheaper to fly in terms of environmental impact. It probably is, in fact, probably cheaper to the environment to fly people, and particularly if that plane was solar cell powered. So there's lots of potential for change. There needs to be, in my view, a lot more investment and support. But the answer isn't purely just to say, well, we're going to hand out taxpayers' dollars to people who do this, because it isn't necessarily practical yet. We need to get the whole supply chain and R&D and product life correct before we can say across the board we're going to do this. However, I'm not saying we should say, oh, well, we can't do it now, therefore we shouldn't do anything. What I'm actually saying is, let's start with the big things in your life that you can change. Be your corporate life, be your household life. What are the big things you can make a change on? Because if we all sought ways to improve the 80% of generous energy we use today, or environmental damage we cause today, chances are we can make a fairly major dent in the damage that we create.
Well, I think there are very few countries or the cultures. I would not call India as a country. I think there are multiple cultures that exist here, and similarly, a country like Switzerland, and there are maybe one or two more countries which are masters in recycling. So the culture here in India, at least I can talk about, and I have actually been to Switzerland many times. They are even better than Indians in terms of recycling. So the Indian population actually recycles everything. Everything is recycled into something, and very little actually goes to waste as a waste or as a harmful material which causes environmental changes. We are animal loving country. We are about 70-80% are vegetarians. So the animals also thrive along with us. So I think that is why the current form of environmental conservation, which has been promoted by G7, and recently they finished their summit in UK, where India has not really agreed to the G7 proposed climate change policy, simply because the way they have drafted it is not friendly for the Asian people, in China, Chinese included, because I think India, even though India and China are the largest population, but they don't, talking about Chinese, I think they eat a lot of animals of different types and kinds, but at least Indians, they don't harm the environment as much as American would do. And our waste and the usage of water also is very, very lower than the average American. Simply because India has almost like 20% of the world population living in this country, but have only 2% or probably less than 2% fresh water. So you can imagine the scarcity of water here. So already as part of our culture, we actually conserve water.
I think that's right. And I think there is a danger in prescribing the way that the net zero policies are administered. We talked about households, we talked about companies looking at the top three things. What three things can they change to have the most positive impact? The same is true of countries. Right, and maybe the objective should be, look, what we want to do is reduce our impact, and we can all sign up to that, or should all sign up to that. What we shouldn't do in these multinational, multilateral agreements is say, well, the way we're going to do it is X. Because the top three priorities in America won't be the same top priorities as we have in the UK, won't be the same top priorities as you have in India. But the overall goal is to reduce environmental impact. So let's look at, even on a countrywide level, what are the three major changes we can make to have the most positive impact on the environment. And let's make those short-term goals, not 2030, not 2050, but actually let's say we have got these top 3 items. Within 5 years, we're going to reduce this.
Well, Mike, I think the environment policy is not the mandatory clause right now for any contract. For example, if you look at the new things which have been added in across the world in all contracts, is the POSCO policy, which is any cruelty towards the youngsters, small children below 18 years. So that policy and that clause is the mandatory clause. And also sexual abuse at the workplace is also a mandatory clause. So I think what you're saying is that in any contract for any corporate or any SME or even startup, I think the environment clause must be made mandatory for all agreements. I think that is where we can start.
I think that's a good idea. I think again it needs to be kept simple. The problem is, as soon as you complicate it, particularly the SMEs are going to struggle because it's more red tape, and and if we're not careful, it's another reason that SMEs won't get their fair share of major contracts, because a large organization can have half a dozen lawyers, 3 teams of people spread across the country working on their policy, their climate change policy, and their, whereas an SME maybe is a team of 5 or 10 people, if that, will then have, oh my goodness, I can't compete in this contract. I've got a great innovation. I can supply this across the globe. However, because I can't tick this box, because I don't have 30 people sitting in the side getting paid lots of money, I can't actually tick that box. So that's where, for me, it would be a better solution to say, you as a company identify these top 3 priorities. You say in your policy to tick that box what those top 3 are, what your current consumption is, what your targeted consumption is, and what you are doing to change it. 3 things. You can fit it on 1 page. It doesn't need, a management consultancy to come up with a 100-page document that has to be updated every week. That will not work. It's not practical, and it's not going to have a big impact, because the largest companies that can do it will actually still find ways to go around it. And probably they won't achieve, well, maybe they will achieve it by 2050. But if they start with their top 3 and aim to achieve it in 5 years' time, and everybody did that, then there'll be real change, and fast.
Well, Mike, we learned many things today in our discussion. I think it's a very vast subject. Many things we did not cover because simply in a few minutes we cannot cover things like water conservation, e-waste. There are other issues. So I think you are making a lot of sense when you say that identify 3 things and incorporate that in your environment policy. And as long as out of a laundry list of 20 items, if you have complied to 3, you are good to go. So I think it's a very good suggestion, and people who are listening to this, can start contributing, enterprises and SMEs, to see how we can help the environment globally.
Yep, absolutely. Sounds like a very good idea. I wish I'd come up with that. I did, actually.
You are the person behind the inspiration, so whether you say it explicitly or you just inspire, it's one and the same thing.
Thank you, Chandra. No, that's true. I do think there's a way to do it. Maybe there's a version of the executives eco chair that we should be discussing, how to tease out what those top 3 are.
Absolutely, Mike. It was lovely talking to you, and we will catch up next week again on some.
Look forward.
Sure, Mike. Catch you next time.
Look forward to it, Chandra. And I think I've already got a subject in mind that I think would be quite interesting.
Sure, Mike. Catch you next week, same time, same day.
Look forward to it. Take care, Chandra. Have a good rest of the day.
Hello friends, welcome to Akul Mac Live, and I'm Chandrakant, your friend, and today we have a very interesting subject to talk about, and that is about the fake guru theories which may not be applicable to you, and things like the fake positivism which again may not be applicable to you. And there are many things, you read a lot of these training programs and you try to follow them without knowing whether they are going to be workable solution for you or not. So in today's discussion, I will be joined by my mentor from UK, Mr. Neville Boone, to discuss this very, very important subject. I will join you after a short break. Don't go anywhere. It'll be a very nice session today. Hello, Neville. Good morning. How are you doing today? Neville, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, CK. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. How are we all? It's Monday morning, and we've got a very interesting subject for you today, as CK said. And it
follows on from another discussion we had very recently about unconscious bias. Well, we're not going to start on that today. Suffice to say that our unconsciousness takes over when we start to listen to what someone's saying. Whether we like them, we like the look of them, we like what they're saying, we think it might be applicable to me, and then they bring me into this false sense of security of I go and do something as a result of my unconscious bias. But we're not going to talk about unconscious bias today. We're going to talk about the guru arena, the thought leaders, the positivity that people focus on, but maybe it's not for you. So over to you, CK.
Thank you so much, Neville. We had a little bit of technical challenge in the beginning, but I think we are back on track. Thanks to the technology. And viewers, we are live right now, and whichever corner of the world you are, if you are watching, you can actually indulge with us with the chat function in your social media platform, wherever you are dialing in from, and we will take your name and respond to you immediately. All right, Neville. So the question today is, if I read a very good book like Warren Buffett's, one of the bestsellers, I learn a lot of these things and I get glued to the book because I forget my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I want to finish that because I'm learning so many good things about life, success, business, so many things. And I want to learn all that. I want to get that knowledge into me so that I will be successful. So after, reading that book continuously, sacrificing everything else in life, I implement those things and only to realize that none of those tips and tricks are working for me. What do you think is the reason for that, Neville?
Well, there's a very clear reason for it, and we all know what it is. It's because Warren Buffett is giving you his experiences, what he's done, how he worked them through. And the book it's a brilliant book, by the way. I recommend everyone get it. We're not on commission here, so but it really is a brilliant book. And just like you, CK, I couldn't put the book down, really. I wanted to finish it because it kept drawing me in and drawing me in and drawing me in. And that's what good books do. But you've got to recognize that it was about him. And if you're like him, and if you do what he's suggesting you do in your context, then you'll be as successful as he is. I mean, there's no two ways about it. I mean, these things do work. They're processes. He's showing you a process. But the point is, he's making it very clear it's his process. If you adopt and adapt his process into your context, then you'll find a way to make it work. But unfortunately, we all think I'm going to read this book and I'm going to be successful. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, because it doesn't matter what book you read or what book's written for you. It's all about what you do in your context. And I can't stress it more than that, really. It's your context. And for instance, CK, you've got a context. I mean, you enjoyed the book. Did you apply any of the ticks, as you call them, tricks and tips? Because they end up being tricks and tips because they've really worked for him, but you've now got to apply them to your arena. So any of those you picked up, don't have to be specific, that actually work for you, CK?
To be, my surprise, none of those tips and tricks or ticks, as you said, worked for me, because I'm doing everything by the book. Everything, whatever is explained in a book of success, I'm doing that, but I'm not getting any success. I think that was my, maybe it is not working for me. Maybe I'm not doing something right. Maybe Warren Buffett is expert. I need to probably reach to that level for that solution to work for me. So all those things happened, and none of those tips and tricks work for me, Neville.
Well, I can understand it because, again, you've got to remember where Warren Buffett comes from. He comes from the finance world, from investment strategies, from money, and it's money making more money. So in some respects, I'm not surprised they haven't worked. However, let's go back to the fact that they're a process. So let me introduce a few other so-called gurus that are out there, because I've got a bit of a blind spot. And it's not a blind spot because I know it's a blind spot, if you're with me. It's my unconscious bias to the terms that are currently used in this world of personal development. The gurus, the influencers, and people that are known for a term that's been created by somebody, and they've fitted into that term. And let's look at one, for instance. Let's look at Jeff Bezos. Now, most people wouldn't say that Jeff Bezos is a guru, but he's an influencer. And you need to look at his transition over the last 10 or 12 years, because 12 years ago, we didn't even know who the guy was, frankly. We may have seen some articles that were written about him in the Harvard Business Review or maybe in one of the newspapers, and we would have known him as the CEO of Amazon. That's what we would have known him as. But look at him recently. He's suddenly become an expert on space. He's suddenly become an expert on AI. And all of a sudden Amazon have now shot up the charts. And we're now not talking about Amazon, the company, we're talking about Jeff Bezos. So you've got to look at the transition, and this has been quite deliberate, by the way. This is no accidental path that they've put Jeff on. And it's done with all of the big organizations that are out there that rely upon you now knowing about Jeff Bezos, the person. And there's a reason why. Can you think of one reason why we're all of a sudden in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, we've heard about Jeff Bezos more than Amazon?
I think from my small knowledge that I have on this subject, I think he's the influencer, and there is a whole machinery, PR machinery of Amazon, which is working full time, maybe overtime sometimes, and trying to project him as one of the influencer, and his brand name is influencing the Amazon brand name. I think that is what I can think of. But again, I think you are talking about influencers. Again, this is something which is a big confusion, because influencers also don't rub up their brand to others, isn't it, Neville? I think that is what I feel.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, CK. And you know, we've never really talked about this before, but immediately your thought process is going to that position. It's about these influences. Who are they? How big are they? Are they really influencing my decisions? Are they turning me off or turning me on? And again, we're going to be talking, you know, we're dipping into unconscious bias here. But the point is, it's a transition. So another transition, okay? I can remember in the early, late 1980s, as many of you know, I come from the oil and gas industry, and there was the biggest human disaster in the oil industry called Piper Alpha. It was in the North Sea. And the thing just blew up. Unfortunately, lost many lives. And immediately, the leaders are put into the spotlight. They're put into interview arena. And there's a very famous chief exec of the main company that was running that oil rig, and he was flown over from America and put immediately into the spotlight. No preparation, absolutely nothing in front. No PR training, absolutely nothing. And it was a disaster. The share price of that particular company was dropping like a very heavy rock. And it fell even further once the chief exec got on front of the TV. Because now you're seeing the emotional side of the chief exec. You're actually asking questions of, can this person run a company? Is he emotionally connected? Is he too emotionally connected? And all those things were going on in your head. And what happened was share price dropped. So as a result of that, a lot of people in the oil industry said, we need PR training. We need PR because this is not a one-off. This is going to happen. You know, this is a real jolt to the system. And all of a sudden, most of the large companies, in fact, all of the large companies and most of the smaller companies started to get PR training. So much so that a lot of BBC presenters were earning lots of money, come and do PR training for the oil and gas industry. Now, it wasn't headline news, so you wouldn't have heard about it, but I was involved in it. And I had that PR training. And it was amazing what these people said. You know, smile at the camera, take the emotion out of it if you can, you know, and this was weeks and weeks and weeks of training. And this is where some of these gurus get it from. These influencers, they are given lots and lots of training. Apart from some of them that say, I've never had a moment of training in my life. Well, that's a load of rubbish, because they've certainly sat in front of a camera and they've asked for feedback. And that indeed, it may have been live training on the spot, but believe you me, it was training. And we see it today. You know, we see it in some of the best people in the world that we can relate to. And we also see it on Instagram and YouTube. We see people that we can immediately relate to and we follow. And all of a sudden, these people become experts in anything you can think of. Oh, I was sent this the other day and this is wonderful. And it does this and this and this and this. And we fall for it, hook, line and sinker, because we like that person. We relate with that person. We believe that person. And then we go and buy the good. You know, it's called celebrity advertising in many respects, because that person has become a celebrity. So you affiliate with that person. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's what humans are. You know, if you like someone, you tend to go and gyrate towards them. But the key for this is it's about you. It's about your journey. It's about your context. And going back to the Warren Buffett example, it's a brilliant book. Don't get me wrong. And there's lots of people that have said it's turned me into a millionaire. And my response to that is, it didn't turn you into a millionaire. You turned yourself into a millionaire because you were influenced by the book. You decided to do it by the book. That's where the phrase comes from. Do it by the book, you know, and you'll get it right, you know. But it's not necessarily a rule for everybody. and you've got to apply those rules to you. And if you read a number of books and take all the little nuggets out of each of these books and apply them to your context, your world, where you are, where you live, I'll guarantee you'll be successful. And that's a guarantee, 100% guarantee. How about that for a guarantee, CK?
I think we can debate on that, Neville, but there is a comment from one of our viewers, and he's given this comment from the Facebook platform. And it's Amit who says that this is incredible, great insight and valuable sharing. He truly appreciates, the discussion that we are having here, and he says, keep it up, keep it igniting. So this is the comment from one of our guests. Neville, you want to say something here?
Well, the thing is, it's hit a nerve, Amit, and all we're trying to explain to you is, just like you, we're human too. We're affected by all this stuff. I mean, I'm affected by some of the biggest thought leaders in the world, but you've never heard of them because they only exist in my world. And some of the best people that have advised me over the last 5 years are 4-year-olds. Because I've just observed what they've done and what they've said. Now, are they going to be thought leaders in the future? Would you know them as thought leaders? I hate the term, by the way, all these labels we apply to everybody, but they've just opened my mind. And the point is, now is the opportunity for you to open your own mind whenever you're watching anything, whether it's a movie, that the director has really put a lot of time into trying to make that point come over and this point come over, or a TV show, or the weather, or anything really, or even your own family. It's what inspires you to take action. And that's where, I'll go back to the Warren Buffett arena, because he wrote the book not to make money. The guy doesn't need money. He wrote the book to inspire others to take advantage of their own situation. And I met the guy many years ago, and he absolutely loves this stuff. He's not driven by money. I'm not too sure. He said he was when he was younger. And frankly, I think we all are when we're younger. We're all driven by money because it's what we see money as. We see money as happiness, money as a solution. I'd like to buy that yacht or that house or that castle, or that PS game or whatever it's going to be, no matter what you're driven by. But if you work that out, you're actually driven by a goal, and money is just a medium along the way. So again, you can be very smart with yourself if you're driven by goals. But when you do the goal bit, remember, you need to get all the goals in a line. So there may be an end goal, but have little levels that you can celebrate every time you meet that part of the ultimate goal. And not surprisingly, the ultimate goal will change, because you'll be pretty surprised at how quickly you knock off those little goals early on. But as I say, my comment is we just need to spark the thought process inside everybody. And that's really, what I've been doing for the last 20 years, frankly. It's you're the power, not me. I'm just helping you find the spark or ignite the spark inside you. We've ignited the spark inside you, CK, on occasions, haven't we?
Absolutely, Neville. And Amit Singh, thank you so much for being our patron, and we appreciate your involvement and coming over to our show regularly. Thank you so much. If you have a question, just shoot it out and we will take that question as well. So you talked about having a small goal, Neville. Everyone wants to become a Black Knight, Batman. He's a playboy during the day and a vigilante during the night. So for that, it will not come cheap. You have to be a multi-billionaire. So that if that is the goal, you want to become a playboy in the day and vigilante in the night, you need a lot of money. But I think let's go back to our discussion, which is the next question that I want to ask you is about the positive thinking gurus, which are dime a dozen now. There are every second update which is happening on the social media is, hey, I am the positive guru. If you listen to my music, you will become positive minded. So is it really working? I think in my opinion, it may not be working, but is it working for everybody? Is it the same rule applies to everyone? What is your opinion?
Well, the simple fact is it works for them. And because it works for them, they want to share it with everybody else. Like, for instance, music. Music is a very common medium. I don't know anyone that doesn't like some form of music. And the question is, if music really makes you feel positive, then, get involved. Just do it. I know my wife has the music on in the background, and sometimes she's listening to it, but subconsciously she's always listening to it. And it's that mood, it's the mood music. And if it makes you feel positive and wants you to take action, then my simple answer is just do it. But there are a dime a dozen so-called positivity gurus out there. And most of them, I would say, are well-meaning. They really want to sort of help other people. They're not looking at financial gain. But sometimes the ones that are looking at financial gain are the ones that are trying to push a little bit too hard and perhaps coming over a little too smartly, just a little too clever. But my advice to anyone out there is take the vibe from anywhere. Doesn't matter who it is. I mean, we wrote a book called "Is Your Mind Fit for Golf? The Missing Link to Your Success." Now, this was written for golfers because it said, "Is your mind fit for golf?" But the interesting thing is, a lot of people have come back to us and said, well, this applies to my life, my whole life. And I said, yeah, but you listened to the book, you read the book because it was about golf, and you thought this will improve your golf. And indeed, it has improved your golf. But you're a smart individual. You've recognized, actually, by following some of the process we show you, and applying it to your life. And this is the key element to it. It's your application. And until you've got your application, it's never going to work. And that's another guarantee, 100%. So people that have read our book called "Is Your Mind Fit for Golf?", if they're a golfer and they've applied what we've said, we give a guarantee that they'll improve. How much they improve depends upon how much they practice. Because as we often say, any practice makes permanent. It's the right practice that makes perfect. So if you want to practice, you want to be better at something like playing the piano. There's no point in practicing all the keys in the wrong places. You need to practice all the keys in the right places, because then the music will sound good. And over time, by more practice and more practice and more practice, it will get better and it will sound something like music. But we've all heard of, a baby playing the piano. We all go, oh yeah, that's brilliant, wonderful. We encourage the baby. It was probably horrible to your ears, but we encourage the baby trying to play. And that's the whole point. You've got to encourage yourself to play, because ultimately it is a game. And if you get good at the game, then you're going to beat everybody else. I hope this is all making sense, CK, because again, this is not rocket science. It's all about your world and about what you do.
Well, I think the last subject we have kept deliberately very, very important, which is the change management. Such a big arena. you come to me, I will give you this matrix. If you follow tick mark 1 2 3 4 5, your company is going to transform. So I am the change manager for you. There are so many change managers. In fact, there are 20-year, just started your career just last month, and they're also change managers. There are so many now. You don't know which one to pick. So what is your opinion on this particular label? Since you said you don't like labels, what is your opinion on this one?
Well, from positive guru to thought leader to change manager, yeah, there's thousands of change managers, millions of so-called change managers out there. I'm a change manager. I've been in change management all my life, frankly. I used to be called a troubleshooter. There's another label that, frankly, just what does it mean? It doesn't mean, it means something to some people and nothing to others. But let's try to give people advice as to, if you're trying to grow your business, who should you be going to? Who is this person or group of people that you need to be going to help you grow your business? Well, the first thing is you need to look in the mirror, because you're the one that has to change. And no matter how many coaches, mentors, counselors, whatever you're going to call them, that come in and so-called come and help you, you're the one that has to change. So you are the first change manager that's important on the list. And you need to ask your question, are you prepared to change? And a lot of people will say, yeah, of course I am. And then my next question is, prove to yourself that you have changed in the past. So you've taken advice in the past and you've changed immediately, because the likelihood is you haven't. You've tried it didn't work. Then you've gone back to it and it worked a little bit better, but frankly, you didn't really make the change happen. And it had nothing to do with the change itself. It had everything to do with your commitment to change. And it's really easy to remember commitment to change because it's 2 C's. I like to say in one letter of the alphabet because it's a lot easier for people to remember it. But you need to have the courage to change. You need to be committed to change. You need to be calm during change. And again, these are only just one letter of the alphabet. And it happens to be the same letter as change. So C's. So there are hundreds of thousands, millions of so-called advisors, gurus, change managers out there. Who's right for you? Well, the question is, firstly, look in the mirror, make sure that you're ready to change, because then it helps that person, whoever that person is, come in and helps you change. The next thing is just look at their track record. Just look at their experiences. Ask for feedback from people that they've worked with. I mean, interestingly enough, as I said, some of my best advisors in the past 4 or 5 years have been 4-year-olds. So what's their track record? Their track record is what you see them do. How they're doing things, how they're getting over things. And the point I'm making is some of this is free. And it's free because all you got to do is open your eyes and start listening properly and looking at things. I mean, go on to TED Talks. There's thousands of TED Talks that are out there, and they're all pretty good. But remember, they're talking about their world. You now need to make that shift into yours. There's a phrase in Business 101, as I call it, is any fool can develop a strategy, but it's only the smart people that execute it. So the question is, are you smart? And that's maybe the question of the day, CK. Are you smart?
Absolutely. I think on this positive note, we can end our discussion. I think the only advice that we can give from this discussion today is believe in yourself and check whether the strategy which has been given to you works for your environment, whether it is workable in the first place. Can you do it in the first place? I think these are some of the things that Naval has given us today. And thank you so much for giving all this information so that the people become more savvy, more intelligent, and go to these people who are influencers, positive thinkers, positive change managers, etc., and so on and so forth. There are so many. So I think the key is that you can think about yourself, as Neville said. Neville, I will catch up with you, and we will find some other interesting subject to discuss. And thank you all viewers for indulging with us, watching us, giving us feedback. It is very, very important. I will catch you in the next episode of Akul Mic Live. Until then, I like to say goodbye. Hello friends, this is Akul Mic Live, and I am Chandrakant. In our session today, we will talk about the support systems and how it is important for supporting our initiatives in business and personal life. And for this discussion, I'll be joined by a very important person, globally acclaimed. So don't go anywhere. I will be joining along with my guest after a short break. Welcome back, friends, and we are very pleased and honored to have Mr. Naval Gun, who is joining us from UK, and he is also the chairman of MindFit Limited. Welcome to the show, Naval.
Good morning, CK. Good morning, everybody. Support systems. What an interesting subject, especially when, if you don't know what support systems you've got, how do you tap into them?
So, CK, over to you. Who supports you?
Well, I think my family is the first one to support me, and that
Good
is very
answer.
important.
Very good answer. And yeah, it's all going to be personal. But there are three things that we can tap into when we look at support systems. There's the personal systems, the ones we automatically fall back on, that are personal to us, and they tend to be internal support systems. And then we have two types of external support systems. We have technology that we can fall back on, and we also have people. And it's the people one I think I'd like to talk a little bit more detail about today, because the people one is often missed. And it's certainly missed when you're talking about sustainable development goals, because we make an assumption that we're all in it together. Well, that's a support system in itself, isn't it? By just saying we're all in it together, what does that actually mean? So what does that mean to you, CK, in any context?
Well, Naval, in fact, support systems are very, very important. You know, everything is required to sustain your personal life as well as your business life, your professional life. If one of these things are not working properly, for example, if antivirus fails, then everything else will fail. You know, my personal life will go for a toss. I will have to spend more time in fixing that antivirus. You know, 2 or 3 hours will go easily. So everything has to work. So as simple as an antivirus stops working today, for example, you know, it could swing the balance of personal and professional life into one direction. Similarly, if the front office executive does not turn up, you know, it could become a problem. If there is no payment from a client as expected, it could turn up, you know, things things little bit south. So things like that. I think it's like a sort of coexistence all these web of people who are coming together and making sure the systems are working, even small or large scale. I think that is what my thinking is, Never.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, CK. And it's all these little things that we just make an assumption that they actually work. So, for instance, if you walk into a room and you switch the light on, you expect the light to come on. And when it doesn't come on, what happens to you? So this is the support system I'd like to look at now. What happens when things go wrong and there's no one else around and there's just you? Do you go off in a panic like a headless chicken and say, oh my goodness, the world's going to fall in, nothing's, the light switch is not working, Armageddon's coming, doomsday's here? No, that's unrealistic, but it just bores the point out that some people do panic, and they panic at different levels. So let's just keep on that little theme. When that light switch doesn't work, what goes through your mind? Do you have a logical mind? Do you have a focused mindset? So in other words, are there any other lights on in the house? So have I had an electricity failure completely? Are there other people in the street got lights? Because we're all connected, no matter where we live, we're all on the same electricity system. Is it that one light bulb that just needs replacing? Is there a bigger problem? And it's those internal mechanisms that we assume there, but when we come to rely on them in something as simple as you turned the switch on and the light didn't work, what actually happens to you? And just by these very small things, we can actually find out who we are. So we don't have to look in the mirror and think about all the worst case scenarios. We just need to think about the simple ones. So when your child comes home from school and they're crying because they've had a bad day or whatever, where does your mind go? Do you blame the teacher immediately? I know some people that do, actually. That's how ridiculous this can become. But it's that internal mechanism that we need to initially work upon. That's your first support system. And how do we know that we've got a really good internal mechanism? Well, I'm breathing currently, but I'm not telling my lungs to breathe. It's happening automatically. Blood is circulating around my veins. I'm not telling the heart to pump it because it's happening automatically. So we've got certain things that are in our system that happen automatically. And the beauty about what goes on in our brain is that we can make other things happen automatically too. We can have resilient support systems. So again, let's go back to turning that light bulb on. CK, what would go through your mind if you went into your house and you just put the switch on and nothing happened?
Well, I think two things will happen immediately. One, the state of shock. Oh, there is no light, and that will last for a few seconds. And after that, the logical thinking takes over and say, okay, fine. Let's examine the problem, where the problem lies, and then one by one eliminate. And that is what exactly goes on if the light bulb kind situation. And I think this is true for everything, The first reaction is always, oh my goodness, this is not working. What is going to happen? My day is ruined. And things like that. I think that's the first reaction. It depends, it takes some cases it takes about 1 minute to eradicate this feeling. In some other cases, it may take lesser. And some other extraordinary cases, it may take longer. But I think the first thing is, oh, this is not working. My day is ruined.
You're absolutely right. And although we're just focusing on this one area, it's a really important area because it's the consequences of your actions. And ultimately, what you need is your initial support system to kick in so that you become confident, resilient, you're logically thinking, you're not making a mountain out of a molehill, and it's all those sort of things. And it's irrespective of whether it's turning a light bulb on or dealing with a real problem that's coming to the business. Someone hasn't paid their bill on time. someone actually is phoning in sick when you really do need their help. And immediately, a lot of people just go into panic mode. And they just forget, actually, that they can deal with this if they just think of this logically and in a systematic way. So there's your first mechanism. There's your first support mechanism, you. How well are you doing? And you just think about what happened yesterday when something went wrong. How did you deal with it? How did you act on it? Because that's how you build a level of internal confidence. And that's what your initial support mechanism is. And some people have got an amazing propensity, a resilience to an internal support system, because it doesn't matter what's thrown at them. They just calmly think about it. Yeah, there's always this shock, horror, but how long does that last? You know, for some people I know that drive to work and they have a bad journey to work, they could be talking about that bad journey for 2 or 3 hours later. At the coffee machine, oh, did you know what happened here? Oh, yeah, I was so lucky. You know, that person just cut across me. I might have been in hospital. I could have been dead. Imagine if I were dead. I mean, why? Why be such a drama queen about it, you know? So you got cut up on the way to the office. Big deal. CK, you live in India. You get cut up on the way to the office every day of the week. So it doesn't make any difference. So this is about the internal support system. But now let's talk about the external support system, working in a team, because that's where the majority of business owners do a lot of their business. They actually work within a team. What sort of things can we as owners, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as managers, what sort of thing can we help people to, in essence, create their own support system to be able to deliver better to the team? What simple things can we get people to do?
Neville, I think people used to build a lot of redundancy in their organization so that the wheel continue to move. Unfortunately, none of those things exist today, even in a larger organization where you have backup of a backup of a backup. Those things are becoming less redundant right now because of the pandemic, and the world is just coming out. It looks like that we are going to come out of the pandemic situation, but still, I think it has been announced that there will be a third wave also. So I think the sustainable growth is becoming an issue. So I think to answer your question, whatever we plan today may be valid for a month or 2 months. After that, we have to do replanning. That is the way I'm thinking right now, and I'm in that situation right now, Neville.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And in essence, the word that immediately comes to mind is being flexible. I mean, there's this word that flies around the business scene currently for the last 2 or 3 years about agile operations, agile performance. Well, that relies upon you, the leader, the team player, the manager, just the person that's in a bigger team, not necessarily internally, but externally, because your team, remember, are your suppliers and your customers. They're all part of your team. And this is about you being flexible now, your business model being flexible, recognizing that we are still, in difficult arenas. There are lots of companies that didn't survive, but you have, and you've come through this. So you've been flexible, agile, if you call it, and your support systems have worked. The key now is work out which support systems have really helped you. And look at yourself for one, because it's that internal support system you need to look at. But then when you're looking at your team, you need to see the people around you. What have they struggled with? How have they come through this? In essence, you may say they've come through it unscathed. The reality is they've got the marks, they've got the scars somewhere. And the key thing is not to help them build more scars as you go forward. So we've all got to play our part here, and to help someone else be flexible is to show that you're flexible. So whenever we talk about helping the team succeed, 99% of the time is you've got to do it first. You've got to be the one that's actually there, encouraging, empowering, having empathy with other people and recognizing the difficulties they're going through. So you become their support system. So there's nothing difficult in understanding what this is, but there's a lot of difficulty in doing it because you're going through your own problems at the same time. Does that make a bit of sense, CK? Can you see that flexibility is something that we really do need to be building upon these days?
I think so, Neville. I perfectly concur with you about being flexible, because I think that is the only strategy which is going to work, especially in the SME, SMB arena and startup arena. And personally, none of us have time to look into other people's problems, because we get so many emails. Hey, I need a job, I need this and I need that. We have nothing ourselves. So how can we help you? So I think people will have to come up with their own strategy. They have to generate their own flexibility, looking at their own surroundings, and find out what are the solutions which are specific to their surroundings. And I think this is where the SDG goals comes in picture, where we all need to sustain. We all need to think about if we have to change the strategy. We have been doing this successfully for last 10 years, but now pandemic has put the spanner in everything. So we have to reinvent ourselves. We need to be flexible, as you said. I think this is where we are today, right now. And even if we plan things, especially, my kind of people, if we plan things like 6 months, I know for sure that there is going to be some other, something else will happen in between. And the 6 month strategy may not work. So let's look at it month on month on month, maybe a quarter maximum. That is what we can think of.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that, in essence, is being flexible. It's actually recognizing that things have changed. So we just need to change. And that is the challenge. But like anything else, as Gandhi said, be the change. If you want to make something else happen, you've got to be the change. And it's so true. He didn't know that COVID was coming along. He's long dead by the time COVID was coming along. But he recognized that the only person that can make the difference is you. So let's not worry about how he said it, when he said it, the exact words that he said it. The essence was he really did know that we need to look internally and change. And you're absolutely right about the Sustainable Development Goals, these things that are called SDGs, that people flippantly actually talk about. And they're almost like throwaways. Oh, yeah, we do this in innovation, we do this in education, we want zero hunger, we want everyone to have a room over, a house over their head, etc., etc. And that the reality is the only way we're going to get SDGs to work is by having the unwritten SDG, as I call it, SDG 0. And that is having the right attitude. And if you think about it, if you have the right attitude and you work in a team in any of these SDG arenas, something good's going to happen. But if you go in there with the wrong attitude, what's in it for me, rather than what's in it for us, then you're not going to get those results. So I talk about SDG 0, quite widely these days, because it's that missing SDG. It's the one that we assume is there, but unfortunately, it just relatively on the little occasions that it is really there for everybody. Everyone's in there. And we know what that means when we've got a team that are all pulling in the same direction, CK. I'm sure you've had many occasions where you've had a little team and you've had that one person mention something and it just goes on and on and on and on, and it just skyballs into something that's absolutely enormous. You've experienced that, haven't you?
Yes, Neville, I have experienced this, many times, this kind of snowballing of, good or bad publicity should be stopped, in my opinion. Excess of anything is bad. So while we are talking about SDG, I think there is a question from Ramesh. and he's asking, in his business, he also looks at SDG as an important tool for running his company, but he has no clue. He's saying that is there is a training available where I can learn SDG different levels and go from there. Is there something available like that, Neville?
Well, as far as training goes, I think you'll have to Google that, because I'm aware of a few people that call SDG training, but to me, it's more of a reality check. So my comment to Ramesh would simply be, what do you do in your business? What's the benefit of your business? Who really gains from your business? How do you do your business? And then step back into each of these SDGs and just have a look at which one's going to be affected. So, for instance, let's just say, a throwaway one here. Let's say you're in a delivery system. You use lots of pallets, and all of your product is moved from one place to the next on pallets. What happens to those pallets? Because they're just a medium. They're just a convenient way of moving things around. Or maybe they're shrink wrapped, with all this plastic that goes around it, because it keeps it tight and it keeps it so that it can't be broken up. What happens to that shrink wrap? Because that's what SDGs is. It's the recyclable nature of what happens to it, because someone has created that plastic. Someone has put the pallet together. And to put the pallet together takes energy. So energy is the carbon footprint. So immediately you need to start to think about, what do you do in your business? So as for going to the question, really, as for training, I'm afraid you're going to have to Google it. But a lot of it is raising your awareness as to what SDGs really are. So what is the education SDG? What does it mean? It doesn't mean free education for all, as a lot of people might think it is. But when you get zero hunger as an SDG, we know what that means. It means that everyone's got food on a regular basis so that their life improves. And health for everybody. So as I say, you've got to look at what your organisation does, what your business process does, and how it impacts or is impacted by each of those SDGs. I hope that helps. I'm afraid, like anything, it throws it back into the person who's asked the question. Now you've got to do some research.
Well, I think there are levels already defined by the United Nations, and there are different levels. And I think you were mentioning about SDG 0. I think that is where they start, has to happen for every business, for every professional, where you actually start understanding what is the sustainable goal for your organization. I think that is where we are. And I think we can Google it very easily, read a couple of paragraphs on that, and then you have to do a lot of thinking. I think that is where things are, because training is one thing, but you can't have a cookie cutter approach where whatever you learn in the class, you apply to your situation, because your situation may be different. I think, Ramesh, in a sense, this is what I understood. So one question I have from my side, Neville, and that is that the opportunities are visible in certain areas and there are no opportunities are visible in any other areas. For example, if you look at the space exploration, there are a lot of opportunities, but to reach to that level, you need a lot of funding and a lot of backing and a lot of time, and people have already spent 2 decades. They are actually making the killing right now. The other area of interest is healthcare and education. So what happens to the other sides of business? How they actually look at the support system in their business, because somebody is having a hotel, for example, nobody is coming into his lobby. Nobody wants to stay in a hotel right now. Very few travelers. So what they do in order to have a support for their own business?
Oh, it's a great question. In essence, we need to start looking at those that have made a real success of not owning anything. I mean, you talk about the hotel business. The biggest hotel business in the world is Airbnb. They own nothing apart from a very smart algorithm that's online and anyone can sign up to, customers and clients. So the business model has to change. I mean, the other thing is, I know this is an old adage, and a lot of people say, yeah, I know that, but the thing is, you are where you are. And no one else knows where you are. So the first thing is identify where you are, what industry you're in, why are you doing what you're doing. Because even in the hotel arena, I've noticed, certainly in the last 5 or 6 months, whereas although COVID has closed it down in certain areas, because they've been in lockdown, they haven't been able to do things, they have been able to do things about their business. They have thought about, okay, how can we get new customers through the door? How can we be more inviting to our customers? And some of it is very simple, of just looking at the business model that they've already adopted. What used to work? Maybe it won't work today, but maybe it will. You know, date nights are coming back. You know, one of the things that hoteliers do know is that people go on romantic, getaways. Well, because lockdown has happened to everybody, not just the hotel industry, romantic getaways are going to be what a lot of people want to do, because the first thing they want to do is to get out of the house. You know, not only have they been not going to their place of work because they're working from home, but everyone has been in that same house throughout. You've experienced it. Your kids are at home. They're schooled from home. You live with your parents currently. You know, you've also got your sister on tap. So the family unit has been forced back together. And that's not a bad thing, but we've been there for 8 months. So, I'm afraid the internal mechanism could be getting a little fraught here. So this is where people that know their business inside out, that can actually come out of this in a growth-minded arena. And it is as simple as that. I can't profess to know in the ins and outs of every specific business. But if you were to sit down with every business owner and say, okay, what do you do? Why do you do it? How do you do it? Where do you do it? What's changed? Is it a real change, or is it your perception that it's changed? And as you and I have spoken about in the past, about the digital economy, lots of retailers in the West certainly have accelerated their digital programs, almost to the point of some big high street names have closed down their big stores. John Lewis in the UK, John Lewis and the Waitrose partnership is a household name over here. It's a high-end household name as well. And they're closing down stores. Why? Because they've gone digitally. Has it been painful? Yes. Have they lost people? Yes. Have they looked at what happens in the digital world? Yes. And the interesting thing is, although they've made people redundant from their previous role, they've actually said, you know what, there's another role over here, and we're looking for a supply chain management system that I think you could really set up. So let us help you set up business as that supply chain manager. So in other words, doing the job you used to do for us, but doing it for yourself. We can't afford to pay for that specific service inside, but if you do all the supply chain management, we'll pay you the premium to make sure the supply chain works. So it's just a different way of doing business. And I think this is where this internal support system is coming through, because if you can think logically, you will see through any problem that's there. I mean, these are big problems, don't get me wrong. I mean, some industries have been absolutely obliterated. But I've seen what once was a tourist group that used to work outside of their area. In other words, if they had their regional tourism arena was, let's say, around Mumbai or the Mumbai district, then previously, they may have been advertising overseas. You know, come to Mumbai, it's wonderful here, etc., etc. You can set up business, da-da-da. Now what they're doing, the smart ones are doing, they're saying it's an internal mechanism. You know, come to Mumbai. We've got all of these options available. You can do this, you can do that. You can't do that in your local area. So it's internal tourism that's now taken place. And of course, when we're talking about tourism in India and you're in lockdown, you can't travel anywhere else in the world. You've got 1.3 billion people that could be moving around. So again, you just need to think differently. This is not a permanent position currently. Things will change. Lockdown will go away. We will not have the same freedom that we had previously, as a lot of people seem to think that we're going to just go back to normal. But we're in the new normal. So you just have to think about your business, very carefully about your business, just as you have, CK. You know, anyone that's running their own business, you've had to think about what's changed, why it's changed, what platforms are coming up, what platforms are now no longer useful. You know, and then you've also dealt with the change in Indian law. So you never know whether those platforms are going to be available tomorrow, because if they don't comply, all of a sudden, the Indian government say, okay, you're shut down. So why don't you share a few of those experiences where you've seen platforms change, because you don't own the platform, someone else owns the platforms, you put the content on the platform.
Well, absolutely, Neville. In fact, we were small, so we could change it very quickly, but I think it may be very difficult for larger organization to move on. In fact, there was one example which I want to give here, is that without naming the brand, one of the oldest ISP, internet service provider in India, shut down. And as a result, they were, you know, very popular in different news arena. They were the first one to start the web news, etc. And one fine day, they just said that we are shutting down, we have no money. And, you know, so many people were affected with that. They have, you know, so many companies were hosted on their platform with their company web pages. They can't shift overnight, you know. And the case has gone into the courts here, and people are fighting. I mean, they're in the south of India, but, you know, thousands and thousands of companies are affected with that shutdown. So I think we had to deal with this as well. You know, my company also had to deal with this, and we are not putting all eggs in one basket. We are making sure that we are not dependent on one particular brand. We are trying to see if we can distribute into a different segment. I think today's lesson from after talking to you is that we all need to sit down and understand what is our quality, you know, in order to have a proper support system. And, you know, some of things which we were doing for a number of years, for decades in the past, is not valid anymore. You know, our experience is not valid. So we need to think, we need to take a break and think what we can do with our own hands. You know, let me put it in a very rustic language, you know, what we can build with our own hands, rather than, hey, can I hire 10 people and build this software? Or can I, you know, build a team? You know, that is not going to work, because we don't know whether whatever we have built is going to be, you know, liked by the client, or there is a market for it. So I think that is the crossroads we are in. We need to identify our own strengths, personal strength. And that is the only way we can move forward, I think, Neville. That is what my thinking is.
You're absolutely right, CK, and that's why today's really important, because although we just said this as, you know, what support mechanisms have you got, it's that starts off with the internal strength and it moves to external strength when you're working with other people. And one thing we do know is the only thing that we can control is ourselves. We can influence, we can advise, we can, you know, ultimately, if you go to it, you can bully other people. But fundamentally, you know, if you really want others to do it, show them the way. And we've seen that so often is the case. And you will then see that you start to attract the right people, the people that want to do what you're doing, because it's exciting, it's encouraging, it's exhilarating. You know, there are ways ahead where you can be successful. But like anything else, change is constant, and we just need to deal with it. So that's really where we need to be at the end of the day. So it's been a fascinating discussion with you today, CK. Thanks for the questions, everybody. Keep them coming in, because I know we get loads of questions, but most of them are down the same theme. And the main thing is you've got to do it. We can't do it for you. You've got to do it. It's your business, your life. So take something and go and do something with it, and then you'll learn a lot more about yourself.
Thank you so much, Neville, for finding time and joining us this morning. And viewers, there are a lot of questions. The lines are always open across LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. You can reach out to us and ask live questions while Neville is talking in this show. It's all live. So Neville, we will catch up tomorrow again with something even more interesting.
Absolutely, CK. Enjoy, everybody. Have a good day.